What Facebook faces if it comes to China. Now this is thoughtful. Hello, I'm Trevor Lai in Shanghai. If the rumors are true, Facebook may be coming to China through a partnership with Chinese search giant Baidu. China's appeal is understandable. It has the world's largest internet user base and a vibrant social media scene. Facebook has over 750 million members worldwide and is growing quickly in other Asian markets such as India, Indonesia, and the Philippines. But can any company's global strategy truly be complete without China? Can Facebook overcome the business and political challenges that toppled other giants, such as Google, Yahoo, and eBay? We'll look at Facebook's chances of winning, plus our own PT Black will have a thought or two on Chinese social media users' behavior. But first, we'll talk to TR Harrington, search marketing expert and CEO and founder of Darwin Marketing. TR, if the rumors are true, would Baidu be the best partner for Facebook in China?
I don't think so. Okay, I think Baidu has a number of benefits. You know, it's a great company, but you know, it's not necessarily the best one for a social media company like Facebook to enter with.
So compared to, for example, seen as Weibo?
Yeah, in my opinion, this would make a lot more sense to work with somebody like seen as Weibo, or even with somebody like Tencent, somebody who really has shown themselves to be at the center of what is happening in social in China.
But then why do you think when they set up the meetings that Facebook started with Baidu, was it purely because of their size and their dominance in that particular market, or do you think there were some strategic advantages that they saw?
I think that there's a natural relationship between search and social. And because of some of the relationships that have happened between Facebook and Google, for instance, I think Facebook said, well, if I'm going to enter into the Chinese market, I want to have a strong search partner. So I think that was part of their thinking. And also, of course, Baidu has one of the best relationships with the government in terms of how they deal with media censorship. So again, that was probably another part of their thinking.
So what would Baidu have gained from, other than perhaps obviously some prestige from being linked with a global giant like Facebook, what else would they have gained from a business standpoint from partnering with a company like Facebook?
In all honesty, that's not really clear. I think it would be very difficult for Baidu to monetize social media in ways that Facebook has, in part because that area with companies like Renren, Caixin, and Tencent, all fairly well entrenched, it's very difficult to start from scratch and to enter this market at this point.
And do you think it would have made more sense? I mean, when you look at the strategy compared to a Tencent or a Qihoo trying to move beyond search, would it have made more sense for them to really look at one of the local partners that is already established? Doesn't that make more sense for Baidu to be partnering with a Renren or a Caixin?
I think it does in a lot of ways, but we just don't have a lot of examples of big Chinese companies partnering with other big Chinese companies. It's usually one big guy partnering with a relatively smaller guy, so there's no question about who's in charge. So there's a lot of reasons, for instance, why seen as Weibo and Baidu should be partnering together, but $2 billion companies are having trouble figuring out how to divide the pie.
Right, and when you're talking about $2 billion companies that are part of the same Chinese culture and therefore have an innate understanding of each other, really the marriage would possibly be even more difficult when you've got Facebook coming in. And I mean, that leads to really the main question, how likely is this going to happen, especially with sensitivity around censorship, access to user data and things like that? I mean, are we really going to see a marriage like that happening?
I would say it's highly unlikely. For the same reasons that there were some challenges with Google, I think those challenges would be amplified with a company like Facebook. Facebook has absolutely no experience at kind of policing or really monitoring what is being published, and that's almost antithetical to what they're trying to do. They want people to publish, they want people to share. But from a government perspective in China, there's a certain understanding of things that are welcome and allowed to be discussed and allowed to be published, and other things that really are not within that boundary. And I think Facebook, even with Baidu's help, would have very little chance in being able to manage that effectively.
Thanks, TR. And here's PT Black with a thought or two on how people use social media in China.
I declare 2011 to be the year of Weibo. Weibo, which is a term I use generically to mean any of a half dozen of China's Twitter-like microblogs, has taken the country by storm. The leading Weibo service, Sina Weibo, on its own has around 140 million users. So what are Weibo users doing? Well, first of all, remember, 2/3 of the active users are women, and they're using it to socialize. Their reflections on the day, they're sharing emotions, they're even taking pictures of dinner. They pass around jokes and famous quotations. So what makes for good Weibo? A good Weibo is short, personal, and clever. Nobody likes canned corporate cheerleading. Weibo is not a tool for pushing information out. Weibo is always scrolling, so time really matters. Evening is the time of peak usage. A new change is that the cost of putting in a sponsored message in a Weibo feed has become very high. Some celebrities are charging around 100,000 renminbi, which is about 15,000 US dollars, for one sponsored mention. Weibo is also a lot of work. Constant daily messages, retweets, keeping up with comments. It takes a big team to manage Weibo. The final point is that Weibo is always changing. What's next on the horizon? English language Weibo. We'll see you there.
Thanks, PT. With us now is Eugene Chu, a digital marketing consultant, James Lee, global media analyst at CLSA, and Sam Fleming, founder and chairman of CIC, which provides social business intelligence in China. Sam, let's start with Facebook. Do you believe the rumors that they're trying to make a foray into the Chinese market with Baidu?
Yeah, I think there could be some truth to that. I mean, I think Baidu is obviously one of the big internet players in China, and that would make, on paper, they would be a reasonable partner. Now, whether it's a good idea, I think is another question.
So let's talk about that. I mean, it sounds very glamorous, and everybody looks at it and says, wow, you've got a big name Baidu, you've got a big name Facebook. You know, it should happen. But really, when you look at the real situation in China, what are some of the reasons that it shouldn't happen or won't happen?
Well, I think the question I have is the value that Facebook can provide to Chinese netizens. You know, social is not new in China. You know, there have been online forums which are hugely popular in China. You know, they came about in the late 90s when Sina and Sohu launched. The big part of the social media landscape here. There are already so-called Facebooks here with Renren and Kaixin. There are Twitters here with Sina Weibo, Tencent Weibo, and even those are more than just a Twitter clone. And so there are a lot of different social media properties providing value in a very fragmented social media landscape. So I'm just not sure what unique value or compelling value that a Facebook could provide that in a meaningful way. I mean, I'm sure they could find a niche, but to become literally the Facebook of China is not going to be nearly as easy in a market that's already very, very social.
And if we look at the current Facebooks of China, Kaixin and Renren, they are actually starting to become affected by the Sina Weibos of the world, which are starting to eat some of the viewer time and some of the user interaction time as well on their sites. I mean, Eugene, have you seen this trend, and what are they starting to do to try to combat this?
We've definitely seen Weibo taking time away from time spent on Renren. Kaixin's still maintaining, according to the latest iResearch stats, but I think the reasons why you go to a Kaixin or a Renren are kind of different from Weibo, because Renren and Kaixin are your real friends, people you actually know, and there's a great, there's a different kind of interactivity when you share photos on Kaixin or Renren, whereas Weibo is much more about gossip, celebrity, entertainment, being in the moment, being the first to share interesting news.
And when you talk about these copycats sort of fragmenting the market, isn't it a natural evolution that eventually some of the big players will start to gobble up some of the smaller players? We've seen this in the West. We've seen Google go out and acquire a lot of these strategic complementary brands and companies to what they're providing. Is this something that you've started to see happen here in China?
We haven't seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions in the Chinese internet space, and part of the reason is Chinese people are a little bit more entrepreneurial in general. They believe in building everything organically. But right now, we're seeing a lot more, not necessarily in the social media space per se, but we are seeing some of the key verticals. For example, Baidu recently, they made an acquisition or investment in the travel vertical search called Quna, because they realize that travel is one of the most important verticals to be in. And they realize that also it's a very competitive space. They need to be there on day one. So when you have a hyper competitive space where you need to be there on day one, and then making acquisition from that perspective makes sense.
And I think a lot of the social networks are beginning to open up their platform to third-party developers, and that will definitely enrich the content, and a lot of innovation will come from the developers, not necessarily the platform itself.
So what's different about the way that Chinese users access information and then disseminate it and communicate with each other using all these various platforms?
I think it goes back to the fact that other media in China is very controlled. So young people in China will go to the internet where they can more freely express themselves. And Weibo is one of it's like the town square of China. It's where you can very quickly release news and engage in controversial topics with people and feel relatively safe and anonymous versus a social network where you use your real name, connecting with your real school friends. And I think it's important to remember that in China, the internet users are a lot younger than in the West because the development of the Chinese economy and when the internet arrived. So you're looking at a lot of under 35 people. And for them, the internet is their primary medium for not just self-expression, but entertainment. So they play games more than sending emails. And they're watching a lot of movies and TV shows online. So I think that's some of the key difference in the way that they perceive the internet. It's entertainment, it's supposed to be fun.
And when we look at Weibo, and it's at the top of everyone's mind right now in China, but really it's also a fairly recent phenomenon. I mean, can you guys explain how Weibo has grown so big so quickly?
I think that goes back to actually Sina. I think Sina is a master at marketing their products. You can go back to when they launched blogs, Sina blogs back in 2005, 2006. They weren't the first BSP, blog service provider in China. There were plenty of others, but they were the first ones to get Xu Jinglei, or to get stars and celebrities using blogs, and that pushed blogging to the mainstream. The same thing with Weibo. I mean, you've got this is the biggest accounts, or the biggest celebrities are on Weibo, and the biggest accounts are celebrities. And so Weibo has become a part of the, Chinese popular culture. It's become part of the collective consciousness of celebrity. And to Eugene's point about the internet, it's about entertainment as well. And so I think that they've been a master at promoting this product, and so that shouldn't be forgotten as well. It's not just that. At the end of the day, the technology is necessary but not sufficient for success. You got to get it out there. You got to get people using it.
Well, and so talking about that, what's next? What do you see on the social media landscape in China in terms of an upcoming trend or an opportunity, or perhaps some challenges coming up on the horizon as the growth continues to explode?
I think the next big thing is going to be location-based services through mobile, something similar to a Foursquare. And we've seen some players like Jiepang start to do that, and now Sina's got this new thing called Weiling D that's going to be integrated with Weibo. So I think that's quite an interesting development that will take Weibo not just as an online and mobile experience, but relate it to a physical place and to physical offers or events.
Are there actually things that the West and global companies can learn from what Sina, Weibo, and some of the Chinese companies are doing and take that overseas?
Right. I think from the product perspective, I think Sina's absolutely ahead of Twitter in terms of putting rich media, able to put pictures, videos into their Twitter-like platform. We haven't seen Twitter down that until a later stage. In terms of creating more products, using this platform to be more engaging in general, or also sharing within the small private group, we haven't seen Twitter done that. Twitter is still pretty much a pure one-to-many model. So we're seen as a little bit more hybrid of a Twitter model, and also has Facebook feature in it. And I think part of the reason is making this platform very attractive.
Sam, Eugene, James, thanks for joining us on Thoughtful China. That wraps it up for today. Be sure to subscribe to us on Tudo and YouTube, and you can also follow us on Weibo and Twitter. We'll see you again.